This episode of Truth Table is brought to you by our NAACP Image Award nominated book, Truth Table: Black Women's Musings on Life, Love, and Liberation. Get it where all books are sold.
Sisters, how y'all feel? Brothers, y'all all right? If this is your first time at Truth Table, welcome to the table. And if you've been sitting at the table with us all these years, we are so grateful that you have been listening to us through these years, and we are inviting you to partner with us and support our work at patreon.com/truthstable. Now pull up a chair and have a seat at the table with us.
Hey y'all, welcome to Truth Table, Midwives and Culture for Grace and Truth. I'm Ekemini.
And I'm Christina.
This table is built by Black women and for Black women. So welcome to the table, C. How you doing, girl?
I am doing okay. It's 2025. First of all, I'm in Tennessee and there is a zebra on the loose. I just want to name that out loud. And that just feels very 2025 to me. Like there's a zebra out and about. So how are things for you?
You know what? I'm good. It's a sunny day, a beautiful day. And yeah, that zebra sounds very on brand for 2025. Very on brand. And I am good because I'm glad that we are still in our Still Resisting series because there's so much to resist, y'all.
I mean, what do you mean? Everything is fine. Everything is okay. What are you talking about? Like nothing unusual is happening politically right now.
Don't worry about everything's normal. So I'm grateful that we are still in our Still Resisting series, and I am so honored that we have a very special guest.
Yes, we do. Come on now.
Special guest at this here table, y'all. We have a whole Congresswoman, okay? Congresswoman Shontel M. Brown is at the table. Congresswoman Brown, say something to the people.
Hey, people. I am super excited to be here. I cannot tell you how on brand the zebra running on the loose is.
Come on.
Okay, it's just the unexpected, the unpredictable, the inconsistency of it all. It's so much like 2025.
Come on.
It's very 2025. But you know what's not very 2025 and in order and in decency is you, Congresswoman Brown. So let me tell the people a little something about you before we get into our conversation, okay? Congresswoman Shontel M. Brown is a relentless public servant who is committed to delivering results for the people of Ohio's 11th Congressional District. First elected to the House of Representatives in 2021, where she works to attract jobs that pay fair wages to Northeast Ohio, improve access to affordable, high-quality health care, ensure equity and justice for all Americans, and improve the quality of life of all people living in her district. In the 119th Congress, Congresswoman Brown serves as a member of the House Agriculture Committee and the House Committee on Oversight and Reform. She is a member of the Congressional Black Caucus, the Democrat Women's Caucus, the New Democrat Coalition, the Congressional Progressive Caucus, Pro-Choice Caucus, Congressional Heartland Caucus, Great Lakes Task Force, and Gun Violence Prevention Task Force.
Listen, she's busy. She's
busy, okay? Congresswoman Brown is the co-chair of the Congressional Rock and Roll Caucus. Now, I didn't know that it existed. Yeah, I'm curious about that. Now, Congresswoman Brown was elected to Warrensville Heights City Council in 2012 and Cuyahoga County Council in 2014. Before her election to public office, Congresswoman Brown worked in the private sector as a marketing professional. She also founded a small business based in Northeast Ohio that provides technology solutions to regional clients. Congresswoman Brown currently resides in Warrensville Heights, Ohio. Welcome to the table, Congresswoman Brown. We are honored to have you here.
I am honored to be here. Thank you. And that was quite a mouthful. I'm going to have to take you on the road with me so you can do my all the time. Thank you. I'm clearly a part of a lot of caucuses and task force here in the halls of Congress, and it is my honor to be with you. So thank you for having me today.
Oh, we're honored to have you. And you can take me around everywhere. My favorite genre is hyping up Black women. Okay.
Come on.
So we can take this show on the road. Okay. So, Congresswoman Brown, we are so grateful to have you at this table. I wish that the context for the reason why you're here was under better circumstances.
Great.
We are here to talk about the one big beautiful bill. I'm putting that in quotes. That is the name of the actual bill that just passed the House and is now under review in the Senate. This bill, which it just the CBO, okay, just said some of their conclusions were that this bill in particular would add $2.4 million to the deficit and leave 10.9 million more uninsured.
Mhm.
I am curious from your vantage point. This is a table built by Black women and for Black women. So our first priority is Black women, Black people on the whole. And so I'm curious about how this bill will impact our people and why we should care.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk about this very misleading bill, because nothing about it is beautiful. It is going to be devastating, specifically for our communities. When you talk about making cuts, these cuts are going to have a tremendous effect on the Black community.
Yes.
If I can just talk specifically about my district, when I think about Ohio's 11th congressional district, the number of people who are on Medicaid, Medicare, who are depending on these resources to access health care that's already challenging in many circumstances, in many parts of the country for Black people to access. This is only going to exacerbate that. This is only going to make it incredibly much harder. When I think about rural communities, Black, white, Democrat, and Republican, the funding, a lot of their funding, sometimes these institutions rely on anywhere from 20, 30, 40% of the funds that they use to operate these institutions are tied to the cuts that are being proposed by this big, ugly bill. So when we talk about disparities like preventive care, which is already already disproportionately not accessible to our community, this is going to, again, make that even worse. When we talk about issues around maternal health care, infant mortality, prenatal care, these are things that are going to really, really have devastating effects on the Black communities, because the reality is these changes, whether they are by design or by default, are going to have the worst impact on oftentimes the people who are least participating in the political process. And that's the thing that's most frustrating for me. And so we had spent, when I say round the clock, to the tune of the Energy and Commerce Committee, where these cuts were initially proposed, they were in committee for a little under 27 hours straight.
Wow.
Democrats, 27 hours straight,
Wow.
uplifting the message around the devastation that these cuts would have. And we're talking about $880 billion from Medicaid alone, right? $880 billion from Medicaid alone. And that's just one proposal. And they're saying that they're making these cuts. You'll hear them say that they're increasing work requirements. Well, a lot of these programs already have work requirements. So what they're really saying is it'll be more paperwork requirements, which equals more red tape for people, which is going to make it harder for them to access the program. If you're already working, you already have limited access to transportation and resources. More paperwork requirements are just going to make it harder for you to maintain your coverage. And I would equate it to someone getting their license and being expected to prove that they have their license every 6 months, that you can get your driver's license is good for 4 years or 7 years or whatever it is for your state. Imagine them saying, okay, well, now you got, in order to keep your license, you're going to have to prove it to us every 6 months. Who has time for that?
Nobody. Not when you're working and when the work requirements are increased. That's right.
Yeah, you're trying to survive day to day living. So, it's going to be bad for a lot of folks, but disproportionately, it is going to have devastating impacts on the Black community. And so, our only hope is the Senate. We can hope that they will resist and keep their word, because we've seen this before, ladies, where the Senate gonna do something and then they turn around and Big Daddy Trump come down there and tell them, y'all gonna do this or else, and they change their tune. So we gotta keep the pressure on the Senate. to make sure that hopefully these cuts don't go through, because it just limped out of the House. Now don't let's not act like this got a strong
Yeah.
support. 3 Republicans did not support it, not for the reasons that you and I would agree upon, but because they wanted more cuts.
Yeah.
They wanted more cuts. So it limped out by 1 vote. But now it's up to the Senate to really be the stopgap to try to prevent this from doing the damage that we just talked about.
Yeah, that's so helpful, and you're right. The language of the big beautiful, reframing that as what it is. Anything that attacks the dignity of people, that puts extra burden on the poor, that disenfranchises those who are sick and who are in need of care,
Yeah.
is far from beautiful. It is incredibly ugly, and but there's such power in the language that obviously that doesn't. I'm not the target audience for that, but there's power in the language. Why do you think, Congresswoman Brown, that there are people who seem, at least from my vantage point, to not be fired up, to not understand what time it is? And what would you say to encourage them to engage, to dial in, as this has implications for them, but also for their neighbors? And our audience cares deeply. As Christians, we care deeply about the health and well-being of our neighbors. And so, what do you think is happening that's causing people to not really see how serious this moment is?
Well, what my colleagues, particularly the Republicans, have been very clever about are naming things misleading, misrepresenting
Yes.
the bills by giving them names like the One Big Beautiful Bill, right? And that is a gross misrepresentation. And then they have also been clever about the spin. They are good at the spin, and they are good at the technical
Yeah.
language, because
Yeah.
they will tell you that there are no cuts to these programs, but because the line item may not say specifically Medicare, Medicaid, but it will say to reduce the cost of XYZ, right? So they held it in what's called the Energy and Commerce Committee. We're specifically talking about Medicaid and Medicare cuts. And they proposed them with the challenge of finding $880 billion in this committee. Well, you cannot do that without introducing cuts to these very large funded programs, and that is what they do. So they put it under the committee banner instead of the actual line item. Same thing in agriculture, which is what I serve on. So I can speak more specific to agriculture. Agriculture committee is the committee that houses the SNAP program, the Supplemental Nutrition
Yes.
Assistance
Yes.
Program, if that's what
So
SNAP.
important.
Yes.
Food stamps, right? Okay.
Yes.
And it seems like these folks did not read Matthew 25, right? They just skipped over that chapter. They don't care anything about feeding the poor, about clothing people, about sheltering folks. They visiting folks in the prisons. They missed all that. Okay. So when you take food away from people, I
That's
mean,
right.
that is cruel. And there's really nothing else to
Yeah.
describe it. And so what they're proposing right now these are the largest cuts in the history of the United States to these programs. These aren't little cuts. These are the largest cuts in history to people who are in need. And we're not talking about what they would like to have folks to believe is that these are what some would describe as welfare queens, or some would describe as young men just playing video games in their basement, right? No, these are people who are veterans who have served our country. These
That's
are
right.
who have worked and can no longer work. These are children like that grew up like
Yes.
me, perhaps
Yes.
that had an ailment that prevented my mom from going to work because I had seizures. And so food
Hmm.
was more than
Yeah.
a line item in the budget. It was a lifeline for my family. And so
That's
these
right.
are the people that they're proposing to eliminate programs for. So we're talking about over $300 billion, while folks like Elon Musk collect $8 billion a day in government contracts. Now, if we want to talk about somebody that's a welfare king, I mean, $8 million a day in government contracts is what he receives, but he wants to take away $6 a day. That's what the SNAP benefits break down to, $6 a day, which breaks down to $2 a meal. Nobody is trying to defraud the government for $6 a day. I can tell you, my mother, when she was on the program when I was growing up, that was not something that she wanted, but she was appreciative for it. And
That's
let
right.
me be abundantly clear, it didn't afford us you know, steaks. We were eating bologna
Exactly.
sandwiches, peanut butter and jelly and syrup
Right.
sandwiches and things, just to get by. So these are the things that we're talking about. These are lifelines for people. And so it is incredibly frustrating when we talk about, you said the estimate is about 10 million. I would maybe I'm a little bit more aggressive, but I would say 14 million people might lose their health care, and then
Mhm.
4 million people would lose their SNAP benefits based on these
Wow.
proposals. And again,
Mhm.
this is not built on the under the banner of which they like to say waste, fraud, and abuse. That is not the
No.
case. They are making it harder for people to access the programs, and consequently, they know that if you can't access the programs, then by default, the less people will be served, and uh, essentially, they consider that a savings, and I don't consider that a savings at all. You're costing people their lives.
Whew, my goodness. And what is the cost of a human life? Right.
Exactly.
It is priceless, right? And that speaks to me because I mean, and the truth of the matter is that I was a SNAP recipient for many years post seminary. How about that? And
Yes.
I'm not better than anybody just because I had a second degree. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not. We
Exactly.
all should have access to that when we need that. I also was a recipient of Medicaid. And so I know the benefits of having Medicaid and what that meant for me to be able to access not only just the primary care doctor, OBGYN, but also therapy. You're able to access. See, people don't think about that. You're
Mm.
able to access therapy through Medicaid as well. And we know 1 in 5 Medicaid enrollees is Black, right? And so 80 million Americans, they depend on Medicaid. And so I'm wondering, I know that there is a true fatigue within our community, right? We came through an election that was very spirited. People seem to be, from my vantage point, a bit tired, a bit worn out, and we want to have our boots on the ground.
Hey.
Now, me, being honest,
All right.
I'm an activist, so I naturally am going. I can have my boots on the ground, and I can have a picket sign in my hand at the same time. We could do both. I believe we can do both.
Yes.
And I was just at a protest on Monday, okay, against this one big beautiful bill. And so I'm curious though about Congresswoman Brown. How can we get our people to engage with this issue? How can we? Because even at that protest, there were not many of our people out there.
Mm.
But I'm going to join with whoever is on the right side of things. But there weren't a lot of our people there, and so I'm curious, how can we get the consciousness level to be raised so that they can understand, like, this really directly impacts us. Like, we will feel the impacts of this immediately, and disproportionately as a people.
I think that what you're doing as it relates to the protest is powerful. And I think that when people see, because it may start out one, two, it's a thing that builds momentum. When you see other people, you're like, oh, they were there. Maybe it's okay for me to go and join that too, because a lot of people are looking for ways to be engaged. What can they do? So protests and marches are certainly one thing, but I would encourage folks. You can you should you can and you should contact your elected officials. Make sure that you are writing them. You can use snail mail, you can do email, you can call the offices, you can go to their offices. I think it is important that you use your voice and not underestimate the power of your voice at a moment like this, because if elected officials do not hear from you, then they will assume that everything is okay and that what they're doing is absolutely fine. And I think that it's also important to point out that a lot of time these policies have the greatest effect on people who participate the least, and that is largely because folks are doing everything that they can to make ends meet, and a lot of times they just don't have the capacity to see how to connect the dots on how politics is playing a role in their everyday lives. So we, the collective we, the three of us on this podcast have to be the messengers to be able to draw the through line to say that the Head Start program that your baby is in, that is a direct result of who's representing you in Washington. The food assistance that you are on the verge of losing is a direct result of the people that represent you in Washington. The Pell Grant that you may be eligible for to get yourself up out by your bootstraps is being impacted by the people in Washington. So being nimble enough and able to draw those through lines. And I think we also have to do this, and I'm guilty of this, is of not doing enough of this, is sitting down with folks and listening to what's important to them. Hearing what is important to people who may not necessarily be engaged in the process or see any value in being involved in the political process, and figure out why they feel the way that they do. And then once we learn what's important to them, again, the agility and nimbleness to be able to draw that connection to their lives so that they understand that whatever it is that might be important to them is being impacted by their elected officials. Because I can tell you, you may not be into politics, but politics is into you every day and with everything that you're doing.
Say it.
That you're doing. So from the time that your trash get picked up, the speed you can drive in the car, the cost of goods right now, the Trump with his crazy tariffs, it is impacting every aspect of your life. But if you don't see it through that lens, you might feel like this isn't important or it doesn't have an impact on me. And then we have to be honest as policy makers to say, look, I recognize that some things aren't getting better at the rate that you would hope. Right? We have to be honest about that. Because a lot of people are experiencing pain and they don't see the value. And I don't believe that folks see us sometimes as trusted people. And that when you have, especially an administration right now, who is accumulating wealth off of a meme coin, who's using the government to pad his own pockets, you will get turned off. And so we have to be honest about those things too. So I think there's a couple of things in that, and we have to recognize that that's not going to come overnight, but to also be aware of our personal privilege and personal power to be able to draw those through lines to folks to help them come along and hopefully find a reason to get engaged in a process, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Congresswoman Brown, it is really a treat to be able to hear what you're doing to try to demonstrate integrity and to care for people who would be so negatively impacted by this bill. We're going to pause for just a second, run a couple commercials, and we'll be right back because I think our audience really wants to learn how to engage in a way that's going to be meaningful for their neighbors. Our NAACP Image Award nominated book, Truth Table, Black Women's Musings on Life, Love, and Liberation, is making waves and shifting culture. I closed this book feeling like I had just partaken in a multi-course meal, filled with grace and the courage to carry on. And I believe you'll finish this book feeling the same way. Morgan Harper Nichols, artist and poet. Buy Truth Table, Black Women's Musings on Life, Love, and Liberation at our website or wherever books are sold.
As you can see, we're not good for asking for money, but we are asking for money today, and here's why. In order for us to bring the content that we've been bringing to you for years at this point,
8 years,
we've got a whole background of folks who are talented and gifted and loving people who we have to pay to make these things happen, as well as ourselves. And we want to keep bringing great content to you. We are in a desert of truth right now. There seems to be lots of lies happening.
Lots of lies.
And so if you support the idea of promoting truth in any way, shape, or form, we invite you to partner with Truth Table and become one of our Patreon supporters.
Yes, actually, when you become a supporter, you actually get the episodes a couple days before the rest of the world.
You get truth early. Yes,
you get to speak to, of course, communicate with us. Let us know your thoughts about the episode. And of course, we will be having some more private discussions about things going on in pop culture, in politics, all the things. 2025 is very normal. I don't know. Whatever. Figment of my imagination.
Nothing to see.
We'll be talking about the things. So anyway, join our community today, and thank you for sitting at the table with us all these years.
Bye, y'all.
So we're back at Truth's Table, y'all. And listen, we got a whole for real politician at the table right now, Congresswoman Brown. And I do want to remind the saints that this, the work of politics doesn't have to be dirty. It doesn't have to be toxic. It could be one of many ways for people to show up and attempt to do justice and love mercy as they walk humbly with God. And I got to be real with you. I engage in a whole lot of conversations, Congresswoman Brown, especially amongst folks who truly care about what's happening in politics, but feel a deep sense of just despair. It's a hot mess in 2025. Just real talk. It's a hot mess.
Like zebras running through the streets.
Come on, the zebras. Hello. Listen, I'm more confident in the zebra right now than some of the things we got going on. But with that being said, I also know at the same time that there are people who have devoted their lives to being in these elected positions and are trying to serve well. What would you say to the person who's like, what are they doing? Like, y'all not doing enough. It's crazy out here. People are in pain. What's the day-to-day like for you, Congresswoman, and for others who actually do care and are trying to do something good in this moment?
I appreciate that question so very much. We get that a lot. People feel a lot of despair. And particularly right now, again, I'm transparent, I'm honest, nothing to hide here. As it relates to Democrats, our numbers are in the tank. People just see us as a party that's not fighting, that a word that is often described for our party right now is weak, which I would object to. I think that what I want people to know right now is we are in a Trump trifecta. And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean that they have the White House, they have the House of Representatives, and they have the Senate. And if you look at the courts are even stacked towards the Republicans' favor, right? And that's just a fact. That's not partisanship. That is just the reality of the situation. They have truly all of the power right now. So there's not a whole lot that we can do other than what we are doing, which is introducing legislation. And we're trying to find some Republicans with courage to join us in legislation that will hold the administration accountable, because you will find that the Democrats are doing everything that we can. I shared with you earlier in the podcast that one committee had a 27-hour hearing nonstop. I'm not talking about taking breaks. Like, they came and voted and they went back to committee and they were there for 27 hours fighting against these Medicaid cuts, fighting against the Medicare cuts. And so whereas the Republicans opted out, they didn't show up. They didn't even show up. My committee in agriculture, we had a 16-hour hearing on the SNAP cuts, where Republicans could not defend the cuts. And then I think now you're starting to see folks from the Republican Party say, oh, I didn't even know that was in the bill. Well, you got one job. That's one job. And read the bill so you know what you're voting on. And so they have admittedly expressed that they hadn't read the bill. You had one senator who was very cavalier and callous about her comments around the cuts that were being made. And one of her constituents expressed concern about people dying. And her response was, well, we're all going to die. Now, as Christians, we all want to go to heaven, but not today. And we don't need our
not today.
Not today.
We don't need our elected officials putting us in a position to go there faster than necessary, right? And she apologized. She doubled down, went to a cemetery and cut a video saying,
yes, she did.
sorry that people didn't realize that everybody was going to die, and she was glad that she didn't have to bring up the subject of the tooth fairy. So these
My
are the
God.
people
My
that
God.
I am working with. They are callous, they are cruel, and they are cavalier, and they are calculated when it comes to some of the cuts that they are proposing. But what I want people to know is that Democrats are fighting. We're introducing legislation. We're also introducing letters. Now, people would think letters don't matter. Oh, yes, they do. Two of the letters we wrote from the Oversight Committee have prompted investigation. So letters, the power of our pen does work. So I want people to know that that's not sexy. It doesn't get a lot of news attention, but it does work. The other thing that we do is when we have relationships with folks on the other side of the aisle, I think it's important to be able to work with people, even though you may not have the
Absolutely.
same
Absolutely.
ideology, right? We have to be
Only
able
way you can get things done.
to get things
Mhm.
done. So when the funding freezes were first rolled out, I picked up the phone to my Ohio colleague on the other side of the aisle, and I said, "Are your phones blowing up? Because mine are ringing off the hook about people not getting access to funds." So we
Hmm.
talk to our colleagues and say, "Hey, how is this impacting you, and can you put in a call to the president and see?" And that has worked. We've seen the president reverse course. Some people calling them taco out here, but look, if it makes him change course, then chump off. If he chickens out on some things, I'm okay with that. If it's gonna help benefit my community, but
Listen,
chicken out, sir. I need to go for it.
listen.
My thing is, we are doing a lot. And the other thing I would point out is two other things on this subject, because I think it's worth giving some context about how Congress works. It is about relationships, as a lot of things are. In order to get things done, you have to have relationships. And I'll try to speed this up. When I came into Congress, I was 434 out of 435 members. Now, I would be surprised if anybody could name more than 20 members, because it's usually like 5 on 5 on each side that get all of the attention. But nevertheless, it's 435 of us. And in order to get things done, you have to get 217 other folks to agree with you. The next year, I was 353 out of 435. That means that's how many people left, were retired, or retired by the people. So those are new relationships that had to be cultivated, because in order to do things, you got to get to know folks. You got to find some common ground. Next term, with the one I'm in right now, my third term, I'm 291 out of 435. That's, again, the number of turnover, people who have left, retired, or have been retired by the people. So in literally a 4-year window, that's how many people have come and gone.
Hmm.
And so when we wonder why things don't happen as quickly as we like, to get to that magic number of 218 is incredibly challenging to do when you're here only about 4 days out of the week, and your days are jammed packed from morning to night, and trying to find and establish those relationships becomes incredibly hard. And so that's why things kind of don't happen as quickly as they do and would, and why it might sometimes you might feel like you only hear about certain folks getting things done. Well, there's 435 of us, and I can assure you there's a little over 200 Democrats who are fighting every day to protect and serve and deliver for their constituents. But it doesn't always get the attention that it deserves.
Now that insight is really helpful, just even about the turnover. I hadn't really considered that, actually.
Yes.
How
That
the
level
people.
of instability. You think about, 'cause
Yeah.
I think what people feel sometimes is that there are people who've been in their roles for too long,
Yes,
but we don't think about the consequences of people not being able to be that should be there long enough to build the kind of
Yes.
relationships,
The
to
consensus.
understand how the system even works, to
exactly.
be able to affect good change.
Yeah, yeah. Congresswoman Brown, I'm curious. I'm thinking about the people. Either listen to Truth Table or people, outside of that who have an assumption about politicians, right? And how, like, you can't be a true person of faith. You can't really be a real Christian if you're gonna be in politics, because you got to play dirty, right? Think about those assumptions, or if you are, then you're probably surface or in name only. a Christian. And I'm curious about how your particular faith informs your work. What keeps you there for 27 hours in committee? Can you talk to us about your own faith, and how it differs, and why is it that your response is not, well, we all gonna die? And, how come that's not your faith? That's not your response, when you claim the same faith as, say, the other senator. So can you talk to us about your faith and how it informs your work?
Yes, I would be remiss if I didn't point out they might pray PRAY on Sunday, but they PREY every other day of the week on poor people. Okay, so what I am constantly reminded of in my journey is how I got here, and I think that's important for people to know, because my very first race that I ran for city council, I thought I lost. When the polls closed, I was down by 6 votes. And what I didn't know is there were 23 provisional ballots in that race, what I call just in case ballots. And it shifted the race from me being down by 6 to up by 7. And we know, as children of faith, 7 represents perfection, completion, and God. And so that was not the only sign for me in the spiritual world, but that has been the moral compass and the guiding force in this work that I do, because I am constantly reminded. I won this race, my first race, by 7 votes as a city council member, and that was in 2011. My next race was 2014, another set of 7s, 2 7s and 14, and it turned out a lot different than my first. Instead of it being 3 of us in that race, there were 6 of us. And I ended up winning that race by 48%. We got 48% of the votes in a 6-person race, which I had never didn't even realize the achievement in that. And fast forward 2017, another 7 showed up in my life. And then Congresswoman, my predecessor, Fudge, said, I want you to consider running to be the party chair of Cuyahoga County Democratic Party. It's the largest county party of the 88 counties in Ohio. I would have been the first woman and the first Black person elected to that position. And I'm proud to say I made history in 2017. And so then here comes 2021, 3 7s. Okay. And so now, instead of it being 6 people in that race to become a member of Congress, there were 13 of us. 13 of us in the race. It came down to 2 dynamic Black women, but there were 13 of us, and I knew that we were on a path to victory when the election for that vote was decided. The early vote for that race was July 7th, 2021. 7/7/2021.
Come on.
And I just got a chill, just because I remember thinking we were down by 35 points. People didn't think that we were going to be able to win this seat. Our nearest challenger had outraised us. And so many things, the deck was stacked against us, but I serve an awesome God. And I heard his voice just as clear as you hear mine, telling me that it would be okay, even when I had my doubts that if I would be able to raise the amount of money. So we raised the significant amount, but still a third of what our closest competitor had raised. And so all of these things culminated into my story of what my leadership pack is called Strength in 7. So I know that I am here by divine intervention, because at that first race, when I was down by 6, I was convinced I was never running for office again. So this was a path that God charted for me. Like I did not ever seek or see myself becoming a member of Congress, but timing, opportunity, and preparation afforded me that. Now, I have been serving as a youth ministry leader at my church prior to politics, and the time just does not afford me to do that. And my race for Congress got quite contentious. And even at the urging and recommendation of my consultants, they said to me, you're going to have to go negative. And I refused. I said, listen, if I have to go negative, I will lose first, because I live here. I have young people in my youth ministry that I have taught and I have my reputation and character that I have to uphold. I have nieces and nephews that look up to me. So I'm not doing anything that I cannot live with or look at myself in the mirror and be proud of at the end of the day. So if I lose, I lose, but I'm still gonna have my dignity and character intact. And so
That's right.
I am when I am whether I am in campaign season or not, I visit churches. I am a faithful member of my church. I only have one church home, the Mount Olive Missionary Baptist Church, where the pastor Reverend Larry Harris presides, and I've been going there since I was in the 10th grade.
Oh,
Yeah, so and
I
I'll be
love that.
50. I'll be 50
Hey,
this month. So it's been a
Come
long.
on, come on, Congresswoman Brown out here not aging, not aging.
happy 80th birthday. Okay.
And so my spiritual father, Pastor Larry Harris, and I didn't grow up in the church. Like I said, I started when I was in the 10th grade, and we lived next door to a church growing up. But
Wow. What a
but
story.
the spiritual foundation that my church, Mount Olive, imparted and planted in me is, again, the thing that continues to keep me motivated. When I'm at home, Sundays, I am at church. 2 Sundays ago, I was honored to be able to give the message at a neighboring church not too far from my own, New Sardis, and we talked about serving, the coming from Galatians and how important it is to serve. And so I get these opportunities to tell my story. It reminds me how I got here, so I can never forget that the divine intervention that put me on this journey from my very first race of thinking that I was going to lose by 6 votes to putting me at the top by 7. And then the 7-7-7 story just continued. And the last thing I'll say about that is while the election day was in August, when the early vote it started in July. The year was 2021, and had I taken a traditional path, it would have. We know that congressional elections usually happen in even years, so it would not. So I just felt like everything
Right,
had to
right.
align. So that's my story. That's how I got here. So it is the thing that keeps me grounded and keeps me focused. And I just try to do things in God's servant spirit. I know that a lot of folks
Mhm.
might not have a lot of confidence in us as politicians, but I hope that they can see the genuineness, the spirit of service that I at least try to bring to the job when I'm
Right.
here.
Right, right. And that it comes out, just even in you talking about your story, your testimony. I love that strength in 7. I love that. That's just really, really powerful. Congresswoman Brown, I think that we would be remiss if we didn't ask you to speak directly to our audience, give them a charge, a call to action. What can they do? What should they do in light of listening to this episode? It's your time to talk to our people and our sisters at the table.
Well, thank you, sisters. I really appreciate the privilege of your audience. This is a time where I think everybody has a role to play. Everybody can't be a member of Congress. Everybody can't have a podcast. You can, but it won't be as successful as Truth Tables, right? So you guys have been at this since 2017, and that is a testament of your perseverance. And I think now is the time for us to persevere in the role in which God has called us to. And so that might mean talking to your friends, letting them know how important their civic responsibility is. It might mean contacting your elected official. It might mean registering people to vote. It might mean educating yourself on the issues so that you can be a conduit to inform others. But what you're capable of. Tap into your gift, and I would humbly and respectfully, but with bold expectations, ask people to tap into their gift and use that gift to bring others to the table right now. Progress is not permanent. We have to fight for it, and it is not a gift. either. Like it is not a given. It is something that we have to fight for. And we see right now that this administration is just pushing the boundaries. And if we sit by silently while these things are happening, the progress that we have made is going to just go away. It's going to go away. And I'm talking about us, because this is Project 2025 in living color that we are seeing. And we talked about it. I don't know if people didn't believe it or if they weren't listening. But this is straight out of Project 2025. And so we know what's coming. So we just have to be prepared, because one of the things I love about us, we are resilient people. We've been through a lot, and I know that we will get through this too. And with the power of unity and prayer, we will be able to overcome. But please, please, please tap into your gift, tap into your talent, tap into your time, and tap into your treasures too, because these things come at a price. It costs to do this work. So
Yes.
if you find it in your spirit that you are able to help support someone, whether it's a podcast or a politician, please invest in those things that are providing you with the resources to help you be a better steward and to help us be better advocates in these spaces that we occupy.
You know, Congresswoman Brown, we're so grateful for your time today. And I'm also grateful just for the opportunity that we've had today for us to be reminded of the importance of praying for political leaders, that they be protected, that they govern themselves with wisdom and integrity, that they are reminded constantly of why they've been put where they have been put for such a time as this. And we pray blessings for you, and also that the blessing of continued wisdom, and that you would be protected in your role, and that you would have divine wisdom in knowing how to show up and how to partner with people. It's just important that we remember to humanize people that are in leadership right now. And get ready to fight. Boots on the ground. I got my fan ready. But also, one fan in one hand, protest sign, and the other one is needed, and then praying on our needs. Again, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, ladies. You are amazing.
Thank you.
God bless y'all.
Thank you. And of course, to our listeners, we want to thank y'all for taking a seat at the table with us. So let's keep the conversation going about still resisting one big, beautiful bill with Congresswoman Shontel M. Brown. You could talk to us about this episode on Instagram, Threads, Facebook at Truth Table, or you can email us your thoughts at asktruthstable@gmail.com. Black women. Truth Table has a Black Women's Discipleship group on Facebook. So make sure you follow Truth Table on Facebook, answer the entry questions, and you will be admitted into the group. Okay. Don't forget to rate and review the show on iTunes and subscribe on your favorite podcast player. Truth Table has a Patreon account, so y'all can send your love offerings to patreon.com/truthstable, or you can bless us at our PayPal, which is paypal.me/truthstable. Truth Table's audio producer is Joshua Heath. Our video producer is Dale Bradford, and Truth Table's executive producers and hosts are Ekemini and Christina Edmondson. We'll see you soon on the next Truth Table. Bye, y'all.